Watching TV has changed over time. Streaming has become the new norm. That's why Golden State Media Concepts television podcast dives headfirst to the world of cord cutting. Want to be on the loop of what's hot in Netflix? Or if it's not a preference, what about original shows in Hulu? We've got you covered. Join us as we fill in the blanks and talk about movies to stream and what show you should be binging. This is the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast.
Yeah, I told you that documentary was pro-Jordan. I mean, he's the GOAT, but it was still pro-Jordan. Hi, hello, and welcome to the GSMC television podcast. We are part of the mighty GSMC podcast network, and I'm your host, who tries to keep his hands clean at all times, Howard Fletcher. And I'm here with my trusted engineer, Jack the Black Pug. There he is. And we are very, very, very excited to be here with you once again. If this is your first time with us, please stick around for a while. I've been told that the show is an acquired taste, and I'm confident that you'll hear something that will keep you coming back. At least I hope you do. We're going to try to give you something. And if you're a veteran of the podcast, thank you for listening. You all know you are the reason that I'm here, and I'm happy to be here once again. We have a fully packed show for you today. We have more about HBO Max. I always love talking about HBO Max. Hulu gets sued. I've got way more CW news than I should. Capone is just about to get John Fithian pissed again. Talk about that. More streaming shows go linear. And of course, I will always have breaking news for you folks. And I will finish up with a little bit on Creepshow on AMC. Episode 2 was on Monday. But right now, here is some breaking news. Taping of the Friends reunion special, that's on HBO Max, that I've talked about a few times on this program, which had been delayed indefinitely due to the coronavirus-induced shutdown of all television and film production, will potentially be completed by the end of the summer.
I'd do anything for him.
Warner Media Entertainment and Direct-to-Consumer Chairman Bob Greenblatt.
I'd submit to
the
him.
hotly anticipated reunion, that is the press release's words, not mine, of the 6 Friends cast members was originally slated to be available on the Warner Media-backed streaming service, that's HBO Max, at launch on May 27th. There's a quote. At first we thought shows will be delayed for a month or two at the most, and now it seems like it's going to be far longer than that, Greenblatt told Variety's Cynthia Littleton on Monday.
Please, sir.
We're holding out for being able to get this special done, hopefully by the end of the summer. If the stars align, we will get back into production. We think there's value in having a big, raucous live audience to experience these 6 great friends coming back together, and we didn't want to just suddenly do it on a web call and, 6 squares and people shooting from their kitchens and bedrooms.
Oh, sir.
Yeah, I can dig that because I'm sure they are breaking these guys off to do this special. So they want to get their money's worth. But Greenblatt did say that if the current stay-at-home conditions continue indefinitely, that the reunion may go to a more virtual route if it is delayed too long because they want to get their money's worth. They're not going to let them get away. But at the moment, he goes on, but at the moment, we're trying to look to the future to get this thing done in a more conventional way. And I think it's worth waiting for, he said. We would have loved to have had it on HBO Max on day 1. But at the same time, if we can get it launched in the fall, I think it'll be something that we can have the audience really looking forward to as well. Jennifer Aniston, Courtney Cox, Lisa Kudrow, Matt LeBlanc, Matthew Perry, and David Schwimmer were all scheduled to reunite for the unscripted reunion. The special was set to film on Stage 24, the original Friends soundstage on Warner Brothers Studios lot in Burbank. HBO Max, which debuts in just 2 weeks, a little less than 2 weeks now, will encompass shows and movies from HBO, Warner Brothers, TNT, TBS, CNN, and other Warner Media properties. And it will cost $14.99 a month if you act right now, going head-to-head with Netflix, Disney Plus, and other streamers in a bid for a slice of viewers' entertainment budgets. I may go into this later on in the show, but I have said that HBO Max is my dark horse because they have good quality content. I didn't think they needed to do this Friends thing. I thought it was gimmicky and they have good content, but it can't hurt. But I don't know what they're paying for it. It's not my money, so what do I care? Anyway, here is more breaking news. This is about a movie that once again is going to go straight to streaming. In another story that I believe is going to be a trend that will continue even after the pandemic wanes, Tom Hardy's newest movie, Capone, will be released on streaming video on demand services. Now, the reason given, of course, was the coronavirus crisis. And I'm sure that's true. You know, there's nobody, if they release it in the theater, there's going to be nobody there to see it. However, I think, as I've said before on the show, I think this is going to be a new paradigm. Director Josh Trank revealed on social media that the film would be available to viewers on May 12th, which is yesterday, which is important in this case because I have some early reviews on the movie. I didn't see it, but I've heard about it, and I think that this would have been, well, I'll get to that in a minute. I'm going to keep my eye on this one because Tom Hardy made a movie about the Cray brothers, and they were twins who ran the London underworld for a period of time in the 60s. And the movie was called Legend, which was released in 2015. When going to the theater wasn't threatening in 2015. And according to my little half-assed internet research I did, the budget of Legend was about $20 to $25 million. And it made a gross of $46 million at the box office. Now, coincidentally, Capone was made for about the same cost. It's listed right now at $20.6 million. So I'm going to be very curious to see if Capone can out-earn the 2015 film Legend through streaming. I'm going to be even more curious now because, as I mentioned, Capone was released yesterday and the early reviews on it is that it's a bad movie. And I think this is going to be the perfect storm for bad movies, especially with the theaters closed. Again, bad movies going directly to video-on-demand streaming is not a new phenomenon, not at all. But with the theaters closed and people wanting to have new content to watch, this is the time for movie production studios to dump their bad content. Again, and I've talked about it before, Trolls World Tour, which broke records for streaming. Now, it was a family movie, and that helps it a lot. But it bombed when it was released in Singapore in a test market. It's a bad movie as animation goes. They broke records. And I think that, ironically, Capone is going to out-earn The Craze, Legend, which is a much better movie. Both are movies about gangsters that star Tom Hardy. So it's a good controlled experiment of a type. Now, the Capone movie is about the end of his life. It's not about his criminal activities as much as his insanity because of syphilis. However, I just think it's going to out-earn Legend because it's going to be able to be streamed. And I joke on this program because a gentleman named John Fithian, who is the president or the chairman, I'm not sure, of the Theater Owners of America Association, gets upset when movies start bailing on the theaters and go straight to video on demand. And, I understand he, heads a lobbying organization. That's his job to do so. He is swimming upstream, pun intended, because this is just something that this is just the way it's going to be. People are going to not go to the theaters in the short run, and I think in the long run, the paradigm is going to shift. For movies like Capone that suck, this is a godsend. So we'll see how it goes. You can find a trailer of the film on YouTube. I would encourage you to go look at it and see if it's a movie you'd like to see. Chris Stuckman and Grace on Beyond the Trailer also have some good review videos on YouTube if you want to get a taste or an idea of what the movie is about. I didn't realize the movie is about what it's about until I saw the review. I don't know. I will see it because I like Tom Hardy. I don't know when I will see it, but if I see it anytime soon, I will let you know whether it's worth the watch or the investment on VOD. Next, I am going to be talking to you about a phenomenon that has been happening more often lately, especially with the coronavirus shutdown of Hollywood. Series that have had a life on streaming that are now finding homes on broadcast television. Some of them were originally turned down by broadcast television, and now they're being welcomed back. So grab a snack, get your favorite beverage, and I'll be right back. Ready, Jack? Talk to you soon. Thanks for tuning in.
Control me.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco, ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Want to know the latest and hottest music hitting the airwaves? Don't be left out. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast. It keeps you on the loop with everything you need to know from pop, rock, hip-hop, and the top 40. And we'll throw in news of your favorite artists, concert and tour dates, and so much more. Listen no further, because this is the gold standard in music podcast.
And like that, I am back. How are y'all doing? You got your stuff? Okay. You know, many broadcast shows right now are in disarray. And it's as a result, of course, of coronavirus production shutdowns. That's all I talk about usually lately. And the trend is emerging of networks turning to streamers and international production companies to fill time, to get content to fill their schedules. Now, a good example of this is a show called LA's Finest. It's a show that 2 years ago was passed on by NBC. So it was picked up by Spectrum, which is a cable provider, their video on demand service. So people were actually watching the series at home that have Spectrum. Well, LA's Finest has found a broadcast home at Fox. The network's going to air season 1 of the series, which stars Jessica Alba and Gabrielle Union. It's a crime series, and it's going to come on Mondays this fall. LA's Finest is a spinoff of the Bad Boys film franchise. Apparently, Gabrielle Union's character is Sydney Burnett, and that's the sister of Marcus Burnett. And that's the character that Martin Lawrence brought to the big screen. Now, I talk about this way too often on this show, but they do it way too often in Hollywood. I do not understand why LA's Finest had to be a spinoff of the Bad Boys franchise, especially if you're not they're probably never going to get Will Smith and Martin Lawrence on this show. If that was a possibility, I could see maybe that's what they're going to do. I doubt it though, because it didn't even get picked up originally by NBC. and which they probably would have picked it up if they thought there was some chance that they would get Will Smith and Martin Lawrence on the show. But I don't see why a show about two female detectives, especially Jessica Alba and Gabrielle Union. I mean, they're not nobodies. I just don't understand why they had to attach it to that franchise. I think it's lazy, but that's why I'm not a producer in Hollywood, besides the fact that I don't have any money. Now, a move like this is an unusual one. A show that's already been aired once, being placed in a primetime lineup on a major broadcaster. But I have no doubt that we're going to be seeing more of this, because the longer that there are concerns about the coronavirus or COVID-19 and stay-at-home orders are still in place and businesses are still wary of bringing in crowds of people, which you need on a production set, a movie production or a television show production set, you got to have some new content. And so I think shows that might not have made the grade doesn't mean they're bad shows. You know, there have been a lot of shows that have been turned down that probably would have been successful had they been given a shot, but for whatever reason, executives turned it down. This sounds like a show to me that has a shot, unless for some reason the writing is bad or something, but certainly the actresses, the lead actors are very competent. Well, literally hours after Fox announced that they were going to be putting LA's finest in their fall lineup, the CW, one of my favorite networks, and I say that with affection. I mean, I've said it here before on this show, and I'm going to have a segment about the CW too later on. They know who they are, okay? CW is not giving you Game of Thrones, okay? But you can best believe that their lineup between 8 p.m. and 11 p.m. is going to be of the same caliber, and it's going to be pretty well produced. It just might not be your type of show. Anyway, the CW has gone 3 better than Fox by acquiring the broadcast rights to 4 series. Among them, they got Swamp Thing, which ran in the DC Universe, that streaming platform, and Tell Me a Story from the CBS All Access platform. That last episode I told you is going through some changes. Now, Tell Me a Story was created by this gentleman named Kevin Williamson. It's an anthology thriller that actually had been canceled by CBS All Access. So the show ended its production after 2 seasons. The CW was going to air both seasons, even though those seasons are going to remain on CBS All Access. So they didn't take the property away. They're just using it. Much like the show that I'm going to be reviewing at the end of this, Creepshow, which originally aired on the streaming service Shudder, but is now being shown on a weekly basis on AMC. If you have Shudder as a streaming service, hard to say fast, you would have all 8 episodes of Creepshow already, but it's still being shown on AMC. Swamp Thing, like Tell Me a Story, was canceled by its original home last year in the DC Universe. DC Universe canceled Swamp Thing after 1 season. I didn't see any of Swamp Thing. To be quite honest, Swamp Thing is a comic property that I've always wanted to get into, but I just can't. I read graphic novels, I read comic books, and I've read a few Swamp Thing comic books. I even read the Alan Moore Swamp Thing, which is supposed to be the, cream of the crop of Swamp Thing story arcs, and not into it. So maybe that's why it got canceled. I'll be curious to see what happens, and I will probably tune in to the CW. Now, the show follows Abby Arcane, played by actress Crystal, I love the names, played by actress Crystal Reed, as she investigates what seems to be a deadly swamp-borne virus in a small town in Louisiana. However, when a mysterious creature emerges, and that's got to be Swamp Thing, from the murky marsh, she finds herself facing the nightmares of a supernatural world where no one is safe. How could that get canceled? The series also stars Virginia Madsen. I like Virginia Madsen. Andy Bean, Henderson Wade, Derek Mears, and Gerald Prescott. I don't know who any of those people are. Now, the show is produced by Atomic Monster in association with Warner Brothers Television, which already has a deep relationship with the CW, producing some of its biggest hits, including Batwoman, which I watch, and Riverdale, which I do not. However, Riverdale has a big following. And again, it's a CW show. I mean, I would imagine Riverdale and Batwoman, not that many degrees of separation between the two. Tell Me a Story is another show that they took, the CW, and it takes the world's most beloved fairy tales and reimagines them as dark, twisted, psychological thrillers. How can that not work? Set in modern-day New York City, the first season of this serialized drama interweaves the Three Little Pigs, Little Red Riding Hood, and Hansel and Gretel into an epic and subversive tale of love, loss, greed, revenge, and murder. I'd greenlight that every time. Now, it's going to be successful on the CW. Why it didn't work where it was, I don't know. The CW will make something like that work. Another show they're giving a chance is Coroner, like the coroner's office. I don't know if I can never pronounce that very well. And that show is described as a character-driven 1-hour drama about Dr. Jenny Cooper, a recently widowed, newly appointed coroner who investigates any suspicious, unnatural, and sudden deaths in Toronto. Probably like her husband, who she could probably have gotten rid of and known how to get past the medical examiner. But that's another story. Maybe that's a plot twist. Each death brings Jenny into a new arena in the city and sparks buzzworthy themes. Created by Succession and Veep alum John Brown, both great shows, Dead Pixels, that's another show. That's the last show that they picked up. The CW follows Meg, Nikki, and Usman, who are obsessed with the online fantasy game Kingdom Scrolls. Okay, well, those are the shows that the CW is going to give another run. I think all of them work for the type of programming that comes on to the CW. And those are shows, even though I watch some of them, and trust me, I am like 3 times the age of these people, are people 18 to 35 who like stories with some action, with characters with whom they have some familiarity, like comic book characters and fairy tale characters, and they give them adult themes and put them in a soap opera setting, and it works. And that's their formula that's worked very well for them. They're not trying to be the number one network out there. They only want to run enough programming that they can run Acne medicine commercials, the General Auto Insurance, and Mountain Dew. And that's it. Next, I'm going to go more on the CW. I'm sorry if you don't like the CW because we're going deep this episode. I'm going to be talking about some new series that are going to come on the CW and why I'm not real thrilled about these. So get a refill, and I'll be right back. Thanks for listening.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco, ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
All right, your CW tight. We'll be talking about the CW. Y'all okay? All right, Jack, data. All right, oh, God. The CW has made 2 additional series pickups for the 2021 season. All right, one is going to be a reboot of Kung Fu, which I talked about. I don't know, about a month or so ago when there was mention of this series coming out, and I'll tell you why I don't like it. And another one called The Republic of Sarah. And both of them, as I said, are going to be broadcast next season. The 2 shows join the previously announced straight-to-series orders. That means no pilots. They just said, sign us up for this. The show is Superman and Lois, about, guess who? Superman and Lois Lane. Now, I probably would have signed up for something like this too, but let me tell you something about Superman. Superman is tough to do where it's good. I mean, it can be just too corny and hokey unless you do it right. Now, there was a show called Krypton, which was a Superman prequel that came on Sci-Fi, which I thought was pretty darn good until they decided to make it cute. And when you do that with Superman, well, you're asking for trouble, and that's what they got, trouble. They canceled it after 2 seasons. The other show that the CW is making is a show called Walker, which is, guess what, a reboot of Walker, Texas Ranger. Now, let me get to these reboot situations. Let me read this little description of what Kung Fu, this rendition of Kung Fu, is about. In Kung Fu, a quarter-life crisis causes a young Chinese-American woman to drop out of college and go on a life-changing journey to an isolated monastery in China. But when she returns to find her hometown overrun with crime and corruption, she uses her martial arts skills and Shaolin values to protect her community and bring criminals to justice, all while searching for the assassin who killed her Shaolin mentor and is now targeting her. Okay. All right. The reason this is called a reboot is because there was a show, for those of you who don't know, called Kung Fu, which ran from 1972 to 1975, which starred David Carradine. And it was set in the Old West, in the 1800s West, and it was about a guy named Kwa Chang Caine. He had a white American father, and a Chinese mother, and he grew up in a monastery, a Shaolin monastery, and learned Kung Fu. His master was killed. He ended up killing the person who killed his master and had to leave. He goes back to America to look for his father and his family, his American family. And as the Samuel L. Jackson character Jules in Pulp Fiction says, he walks the earth alone in very solemn meditation, looking for his family, and he has these adventures, and ultimately he always has to do some kind of martial arts during the course of the show. Wasn't the greatest show. It was big when I was a kid in the 70s, and I enjoyed watching it. I have 2 criticisms for this show. Here comes me with my wah-wah. Here's my thing. Number 1, they don't need to call this show Kung Fu. Call it something else. Don't ride the coattails of a show. This has absolutely nothing at all to do with the show I just described. Secondly, the first part of this girl's story sounds like Bruce Wayne. I mean, she goes off, she has a crisis. Now, Bruce Wayne Now, Bruce Wayne's parents were killed and he was rich, but it was nevertheless a crisis. He goes off to the east, as they say in the comic books, and he comes back with these skills, just like this lady does. And she comes back looking for revenge for a crime that was committed on her monastery, just like Danny Rand in Iron Fist, which is a Marvel property. This is a totally unoriginal story. And what they did is they said, let's call it Kung Fu, and we're going to put a woman in this role and throw it on the CW. And it may be popular, but it may not. I think they should have written, this is where I'm going to do my rant. They should have written this Asian actress who is probably very good, an original part, and given her a backstory that wasn't something that was a revamp of comic books. Now, as a CW show, as I just mentioned in the last segment, this will probably work because it's very formulaic, but it's just not original and it's lazy. And I wish they had done something better, especially if they're going to hang the Kung Fu brand on it. That's all. If you're going to put a brand name on something that's already been established, at least make it good if you're not going to do the same thing. I don't like reboots of any kind, but if you're going to use the name, at least respect, as they say, put some respect on it. The other show, The Republic of Sarah, faced with the destruction of her town at the hands of a greedy mining company, rebellious high school teacher Sarah Cooper utilizes an obscure cartographical loophole. A cartographical loophole means that she's found something on a map. And according to this description, that cartographical loophole helps her declare her independence. It was an obscure cartographical loophole, as obscure as the word cartographical. Now Sarah must lead a young group of misfits as they attempt to start their own country from scratch. Now, that's original. A little convoluted, but original. The cast includes Neo Holloway, Luke Mitchell, Hope Lauren, I don't know any of these people, Landry Bender, and Megan Follows. Now, the good thing about the CW is that they do have a lot of young, new talent on it. So that's a good thing. And it's probably the same with Kung Fu that I just ranted about. Don't get me started again on Kung Fu.
Oh, hell no!
These two shows mark the first pilot crop of series to get orders for the CW. Now, as I noted in the last segment, it's going to be very rare new shows coming on the scene. Usually because of the coronavirus pandemic, either they're going to push these shows back or they're going to take shows from other streaming services and put them on. So these two shows, the CW obviously thought was worth betting on. The CW also had ordered 6 pilots this year to top its straight-to-series orders, according to an individual with knowledge of the situation. I got this out of the Hollywood Reporter. They got sources. Both Maverick and The Lost Boys will be rolled into next season. Well, they don't say what that's about, but I guess you can guess. The planted spin-offs of both Arrow and the 100 remain in contention. The Arrow spin-off, which will focus on the Black Canaries, which aired this season, that was one of them. And then there's a 100 spin-off that's unnamed. I never watched the 100, but that was supposed to begin on May 20th, and it never was. The CW announced in January that it was renewing most of its scripted lineup, including Riverdale, Batwoman, Charmed, and Supergirl. So that's all I got from the CW. I know I went deep with them, and I got a little hot about Kung Fu. Really just disappointed. I do like to take little digs at the CW on this show, but I do it with love. I do. I watch some CW shows. I watch almost all the superhero shows that have aired on the CW, except for Legends of Tomorrow. And I did watch the first season of Legends of Tomorrow. It just didn't pull my attention. But I watched the other ones, and the other ones have their corny times, and The Flash is a big soap opera for the most part. But I like them, and I know what I'm getting, and I'll check out Black Canaries, and I'll see how that is. I did like Arrow, that was a spin-off on, and I will watch Swamp Thing. I won't watch Kung Fu. I'm not telling you not to watch Kung Fu, though. I want to make that clear, because the CW does pick up shows with a lot of young, talented actors and production people on it. A lot of Canadian actors, as a matter of fact. And I don't want them to lose their jobs, and I would never tell you, I don't want to say never, I can't see myself telling anybody not to watch a show that I've never watched. Listen, I'm doing my little protest against Kung Fu is because It was a show that I loved as a little kid. That's all. And the way it's described here, I don't think they should have named it Kung Fu. And that's the only reason. And that only makes sense to me and nobody else. So Kung Fu may turn out to be a good show and it may have a long run. And if it does, bravo. And I wish those actors and actresses and the production company the best. But this guy won't be watching it. Next, I'm going to talk about Disney Plus and what they're doing. You all probably have heard about this by the time you're listening to this show, about a Broadway show that's going to be coming to Disney Plus and the future of Broadway and streaming and all of that kind of stuff. So get something to eat, get a stiff one, and I'll be right back. Thanks for listening.
Oh, hell no!
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right. You're back. All right, Jack? Yeah. Okay. Well, what some people think is a bright spot in the pandemic is this. Disney has just changed its plans to release a filmed version of the Lin-Manuel Miranda Broadway musical Hamilton. It's now going to be released on July the 3rd on Disney Plus. That accelerates the original date of October 15th, 2021. That means they're going to release it almost a year and a half before they plan to. Disney Executive Chairman Robert Iger and creator and original star of Hamilton, as I mentioned, Lin-Manuel Miranda, just announced on Good Morning America, to use their words, will brighten up the 4th of July weekend by airing the seminal hip-hop American history tale. This comes after Disney moved up the release of the 10-part Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance, from a planned release on ESPN during the NBA playoffs, showing 2 one-hour segments each week since April 19th. And I've been watching that, and it's actually been quite good. It, of course, shows Jordan in a good light because Jordan is one of the producers. However, it also shows some sides of him that aren't as complimentary, and it's pretty good. It's entertaining, to say the least. It's been getting great ratings on ESPN. It's been a godsend for ESPN, as a matter of fact, because since all sports leagues are shut down, there's been nothing to air new on ESPN. So that's why that's why Disney made the decision to go ahead and run it. And it was a great decision to make. After Miranda tweeted the news on February 3rd that the recording of his groundbreaking Broadway show was set for release on Disney in the fall of 2021, as I said earlier, Deadline, that's where I got some of this information. That's a website, entertainment website you should check out, revealed that the corporation paid $75 million for the rights worldwide. And they were bidding against other suitors, and they won out. And that was believed to be the largest sum ever paid for a finished film. So they really were betting their money on Hamilton.
Yes.
Now, how the straight-to-streaming development impacts Disney's attempts to monetize its Disney Plus investment remains to be seen. We'll definitely hear from theater chains because I know they're upset that they're not going to have Hamilton in theaters, and we're going to hear from my man John Fithian of the Theater Owners Association because he cannot like this one bit. Now, the musical Hamilton, it won 11 Tony Awards in 2016, and it won the Pulitzer Prize for Drama as well. Now, one of the reasons that Disney won the deal is because they committed to a worldwide theatrical release. The movie is 2 hours and 40 minutes long. And it was shot 2 weeks before the original cast left the production. That's why going to see this would be something novel for those people who didn't see the original cast. I don't think a movie of just any cast of Hamilton would necessarily be a draw. But this one should be a draw because it was a big event, this play. This will be even more of a seminal cultural zeitgeist event because it's going to allow people. Now, this is what Miranda said, and I agree with him. It's going to allow people to avoid having to pay $500 a seat, which they had to do before when the original cast was there. I mean, it had become a thing, and it was very expensive to see Hamilton. Prior to the Broadway shutdown, because Broadway has been totally shut down too, just like everything else in New York, Hamilton had remained atop the Broadway box office charts, and its total gross since it opened in 2015 has been more than $636 million. It's been seen by 2.6 million people. That's a load. It also had touring companies in San Francisco and London, and another would have started in Los Angeles by now, and they were also looking at Australia and Germany. So Hamilton is big business, y'all. There's no opportunity to see Hamilton in any other form live on stage right now. The theaters are going to be possibly closed into next year. And I'm going to get into this. The original plan was that they were going to run Hamilton in the theaters when they released it in 2021. And they were going to leave it there as in the theaters. I'm talking about movie theaters as long as they possibly could. And then once it had finished its run, they were going to put it on Disney Plus, and it was just going to be part of the Disney Plus library. But Disney's been hit hard in its theme parks, and it's in its theatrical entertainment division due to the pandemic. So Disney is trying to raise money any way it can, and Disney Plus has been a hit. I mean, they have just eclipsed, I think, 56 million new subscribers, and it released in November. I mean, this is in 6 months. They have this many subscribers. So this was a good plan. Given that they think people will subscribe to Disney Plus so they can see Hamilton. That's the wild card there, I guess. The performance of Hamilton that was filmed for the movie was filmed at the Richard Rodgers Theater on Broadway in June of 2016. And it's going to have the original cast, like I said. So that's Lin-Manuel Miranda as Alexander Hamilton and the rest of the cast. I'm not going to list them all for you. But this is a power play for Disney Plus. This is not the same as producing prestige scripted television like HBO or Showtime or whoever. And they're going to need to do that, I believe, to be successful. But this is a major move in two ways in my assessment. Number one, Disney Plus might be the spot for spectacular event television, which would probably meld well with the Disney brand. So Disney's niche could be to have something that you can't see anywhere else. Not a series or something, but something very rare, something you can't see anywhere else. Almost like their theme park. They made the Magic Kingdom and all those things, something you could go nowhere else to see but Disneyland. And maybe if Disney Plus can get a lot of very rare properties or things that you can't see, like the original cast of Hamilton had filmed before they broke up, maybe that'll be their brand. Maybe that'll be the thing that sets them apart. I did a story about 4 or 5 weeks ago about Broadway HD. Now, Broadway HD is a streaming service that their normal product is much like this Hamilton thing. They film productions that are no longer running on Broadway, usually the original cast, and so you can go on Broadway HD and watch My Fair Lady or Network or whatever, Cats or whatever you want to see that might be in their library. That's no longer on Broadway. And if you feel like you want your hit of Broadway, your little fix, you don't have to take a trip to New York. You don't have to pay $500 a seat or get a hotel or something like that. You can just watch Broadway HD. So it had a small subscription. I don't know the numbers, but I'm sure it was just thousands of subscribers. But they started to experience binging behavior during this COVID shutdown. And they picked up some subscribers and they got very popular, which is something that they had never seen before. And I tend to believe, much like cinema, that Broadway and stage entertainment is going to have to find a way to make a hybrid of live entertainment and streaming entertainment, because I think after this experience, this is going to be, I hate to use the cliche, the new norm for some folks. Some people and I think it's going to be significant enough for them to make changes in their paradigm, are not going to be willing to sit in little Broadway theaters for a lot of money and rub shoulders with people who might be carrying something that they don't want to catch. Even if we have a vaccine for COVID, this whole situation, I think, is going to make people rethink how they consume their entertainment. And they're going to have to find some way to make it profitable to offer it both ways. And that was my argument to, well, I didn't speak to him, but to John Fithian of the Theater Owners Union, who put down this ultimatum with Universal Pictures saying, if you guys continue to stream your stuff without putting it in the theaters, we're no longer going to do business with you. I think that's a ridiculous move, because you're going to have to, people are going to stream. Streaming is the future right now until the internet breaks down, because it works for people's lifestyle. And I think it's going to be this way for into the near future. So I think a lot of things are going to change. And so this thing with Disney Plus, I think, to me, when I read this article, I thought that it was a great business decision by Disney to do this. And number two, this is just another signal that we are going to start consuming live entertainment in a different form. In live entertainment, I am going to include cinema, because even though you are looking at a projection, it's a public group consumption situation. So all of us with televisions are beneficiaries, and that's why I bring it up on the television podcast. So next, Hulu is in a little hot water, or at least some people seem to think so, because they just got a class action suit thrown at them. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit next with some breaking news, and then I'll get into Creepshow. Thanks for listening. Go get a snack. I'll be right back.
Golden State Media Concepts Sci-Fi Podcast. Together we dive into the world of sci-fi and science fiction. From episodes of Star Trek, Star Wars, to The Walking Dead, Resident Evil, all the hot new science fiction movies from the back doors of Marvel or DC. The Golden State Media Concepts Sci-Fi Podcast. You'll never look at science fiction the same way again.
Yep. All right, Fred Sanford. How you doing? All right, we are back. And first things first, I would like to give a special shout out to a gentleman who goes by the handle of Dark Bulb on Twitter. He follows us at GSMC_television on Twitter. My particular individual handle is at FletchDC, FletchDC. So follow me if you'd like to. And Dark Bulb has been enjoying the show. I want to thank him for the feedback that he's given us and for listening to the show. We love getting people that listen to the show and like it. We're hoping that that's the case here. He's currently binge watching The Expanse, which is a show that I've not been able to squeeze in yet. I look forward to hearing more about The Expanse from Dark Bulb and anyone else out there who is a fan of The Expanse. It's something that I will weave into the mix one of these days, and maybe we'll have a discussion about it. I also want to tell Dark Bulb that Snowpiercer, which is set to start this Sunday on TNT, it's on my list. It's on my DVR. Hopefully I'll be able to get to it before I record Tuesday's episode. If I do, I will mention it, but it's something I'm going to mix in or try to mix in to see how it goes. I only watched half the movie on cable. I enjoyed every bit of it. I just didn't have time to watch it. And I certainly like Parasite, and Parasite is from the same director. So now on to some breaking news. Digital juggernaut Pornhub has offered itself as a streaming partner to Germany's Oldenburg Film Festival.
Yes,
now, the Oldenburg Film Festival is a 26-year-old indie movie event.
I do anything
known for
him.
its edgy programming and its quirky celebrity tributes. Edgy. I like that.
I'd submit to him.
The offer extended by Pornhub was extended by its vice president, Corey Price.
Control me.
It comes nearly a week after the festival announced that it's going to forge ahead, as planned, in September.
Please, sir.
You know, coronavirus or not, I guess they have enough prophylactics there to,
oh, sir,
protect everyone, I guess. The festival's aiming for a combination of physical and virtual screenings. The move is yet another sign of Pornhub's seriousness about participating in mainstream cinema. I will say this, Pornhub makes a ton of money. It is a player, but it deals in porn, so they're trying to get more mainstream. They certainly have the capital to do so. While the festival has a lower profile than its sisters in Berlin and Munich, it is labeled by some as Germany's Sundance, and it touts an openness to extremes on its website. It also has a history with Pornhub. Pornhub premiered an original short called Her and Him in 2019. It was directed by former Disney star Bella Thorne. Yes! Wow, former Disney star. Obviously, she did her best acting at Disney when she was pretending like this wasn't what she would rather do. When Pornhub comes to the rescue, somehow it just restores my faith in humanity. You know what I mean? Now, I haven't seen Her and Him by Bella Thorne yet, but I will before this weekend ends. I can guarantee you that. Now, more breaking news. Hulu has been hit with a class action lawsuit that claims that it deliberately throttles its service on web browsers. The suit filed in Los Angeles Superior Court on April 16th contends that Hulu is trying to force subscribers to use its app so it can more easily collect and sell their data.
Oh, hell!
The suit claims that Hulu engaged in false advertising and fraud when it claimed that high-quality streams would be available on all your favorite devices. Quote, defendants prefer that users use Hulu applications because compared to computer browsers, applications provide more direct access to consumers' personal data during online and offline use, the suit alleges, end quote. Or end quote, the suit alleges. The lawsuit cites complaints on Hulu's community discussion board, including one from a customer who wrote that, quote, video quality is HD and fine on my TV where I'm using a Fire Stick, but on my PC where they want me to use their app, the quality is horrible, end quote. The Hulu rep responded, apologies for the trouble. Our team is aware of this issue and are actively working to re-enable high-definition streaming on Hulu.com. However, commenters followed up to say the problem had not been fixed months later. The issue has also been discussed extensively on Reddit. In August 2019, a Reddit user posted a conversation with a Hulu customer service rep in which the user complained about low quality video on a PC. The rep said that Hulu was working to re-enable high definition streaming on Hulu.com, but suggested using another device in the meantime. The suit seeks to represent all Hulu subscribers nationwide, in addition to subclasses in California and New York that would be able to bring state law claims. Well, I have Hulu. Now, I don't use the app. I mean, I do stream it, and I do watch it most of the time on my PC. My PC has a pretty good, it's an all-in-one, it's an HP all-in-one that has a pretty decent resolution. I haven't really had any problems with it, but then again, I don't use the app, and I won't use the app now that I know that they can suck more information from me than they already do.
Oh, hell no!
I haven't heard anything about this lawsuit, though, and I'm not trying to pile on Hulu, but if you guys subscribe to Hulu, you should know about this, if this is in fact what they are doing. And if it's not what they're doing, I hope they can prove so in court, because there's no place for this in the streaming world. Now, I'm not naive. Obviously, I know that anybody, if you get on the internet at all, if you use Google, Chrome, or if you use anything, you know, I know there are some browsers that claim that they protect information theft, but there is some type of tracking of individuals on almost any consumer level aspect of the internet. Anyone who watches Mr. Robot would know that. But, you know, I'm not naive about it. However, when, you know, you have people like Facebook and now you have Hulu and stuff who are, you know, knowingly going in, sucking as much data down as they can so they can sell it and profit off of it, there's no place for that anymore. And there's too much competition for that right now. One of the things that Facebook benefits from is that they don't really have head-to-head competition with anyone in that format. I mean, Facebook has a clamped down monopoly on that stuff, especially since they've made the platform easy enough for your 80-year-old grandmother to use. So, you know, it's going to be tough for them. Either people stop using Facebook and communicating in that way, or they don't, because I don't think there's anybody that's going to be able to steal that market share away. Hulu, on the other hand, if people feel like they are not safe Hulu's not safe to use, they'll go elsewhere to get their streaming, because there are so many places you can go. Speaking of Hulu, I did start to watch some of their original programming in the form of Mrs. America, which is a miniseries starring the beautiful Cate Blanchett. It is very good. At least episode 1 was good, and half of episode 2. I thoroughly enjoy it. Now, in the back of my mind, I'll be wondering whether they're going to be, scouring my data in the background, which they probably will. If I start getting emails about how I can get a version of Her and Him for private use, then I will know that that's what they're doing. But I will finish the miniseries. I'll let you know what I think about the miniseries when it's done. So that's about it for the breaking news. Next, I am going to go into episode 2 of season 1 of Creepshow. They presented us with 2 new stories, and maybe you can tell by the sound of my voice, it wasn't fantastic, but I'll let you know what they did well, and I'll let you know what kind of outlook I have for the rest of the season, and we will see how it goes. Until then, go order yourself a pizza or nachos or donuts or popcorn or whatever kind of food goes well with a discussion of horror anthology television. Get yourself some drinks. I'm always a proponent of that. Pour yourself a glass of wine, or if you're not an alcohol drinker, get yourself some good old H2O, and I'll be right back after these messages. Thanks for listening.
Blah 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 blah.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
All right. Did you get it with everything? Anchovies. And Jack. We're back. And Creepshow, episode 2 of season 1, aired on AMC this past Monday night. And I watched it. And so I'm back, shambling, shuffling, and staggering to review the second installment of Shudder's. Now, it comes on the Shudder channel, as I mentioned before last episode. It originally aired on Shudder. Shudder is a horror streaming service. And they let AMC reanimate season 1 of Creepshow, and it's being aired on there. The good news is that compared to the disappointing premiere, which I reviewed last episode, there's been an improvement to the show. There has. The bad news is that while things are looking up, we finally have liftoff. By no means are we at cruising altitude. We are not. Episode 2 kicks off with a segment written and directed by the writer of Monster House, a very creative gentleman named Rob Schrab. Schrab, and it's set in World War II, and the title of the episode and the story is Bad Wolf Down. Now, the title gives it away, so I will preface this whole thing by saying, and I should have said it earlier, there will be spoilers in this segment, so if you want to go see episode 2 of Creepshow season 1 fresh, put this on pause, go check it out. But if you don't care, or if you've seen the episode, stick around. I'm going to tell you about it. If you haven't seen it, maybe I'll save you some time. The title somehow has a double meaning. Bad Wolf Down, if you know what I mean. It follows a ragtag group of generic American soldiers. And these guys are like right off of Central Casting. They're about as generic as you can get, who are forced to take shelter in a worn-down police station after running afoul of a menacing Nazi officer played by Jeffrey Combs. Now, let me say this, and I'm sensitive about these things, and those of you who listen, I like accuracy, especially like accuracy when it has to do with the way things are in the United States, because I think we try to clean up history a lot. My father served in World War II. I am a black person. My father served in the segregated troops of the 92nd Infantry Division in World War II. The troops were segregated then in this particular outfit, these 4 soldiers that run away from the Nazi soldiers, one of them is black. He would not have been serving under those situations. The only time you'll see integration is when in penal situations like on Hogan's Heroes and in The Dirty Dozen. That's it. So if you watch a World War II movie and there's integrated troops, there's a problem from the jump. So that always diverts my attention. This case, it doesn't matter. These guys could have all been played by the British Spice Girls, okay? And it wouldn't have helped it out any. Well, it probably would have helped it out, but anyway. Soon enough, the GIs discover that there's a werewolf in their midst. Now, I'm not going to tell you who it is because it's easy enough to figure out. It's just easy. There's a long-standing horror tradition of bringing the Third Reich and werewolves into the same place. I don't know who started it. I don't know why, but maybe that there's more historical basis there than I know. You know, I just had a rant about history. You know, people who know better might say, how can you have the Third Reich? How can you have Nazis without werewolves? You know what I mean? I don't know. But naturally, with this being Creepshow and all, and the fact that Bad Wolf Down is the title and it has its own spin on World War II lycanthropes, it's just the way it is. And for anyone watching this show, that's what I'll tell you. Just watch it and just say, that's just the way it is. Because this is not, so far, really great horror. This would have been a far more effective rehashing of this whole milieu of a plot if our discovery of the werewolf had coincided with the character's discovery of the werewolf. But if you've watched any horror at all, you know what happens like 5 minutes before it happens all through this episode. All I'm going to say about Bad Wolf Down is that the actors do the best they can, but the special effects are about as comical as I've ever seen in a movie. There was better werewolf makeup on Dark Shadows. And if you're younger than probably 40 or 45, go to YouTube and search Dark Shadows and you see what I'm talking about. The Finger was the second episode, written by horror novelist David J. Shaw and directed by Creepshow showrunner Greg Nicotero. The Finger is about, as you might guess, a finger. More specifically, it's about a finger that finds its way into the possession of Clark Wilson. Clark Wilson is played by Supernatural's DJ Qualls. Clark Wilson is a deadbeat divorcee who, for some reason, collects all manner of trash, forgotten objects, and discarded curiosities. Clark happens upon the gnarled, pallid finger and happily takes it home and places it in his refrigerator, like anyone would do. But then, of course, it starts to grow because it's on Creepshow. And actually, this is the best plot so far that I've seen in this show. And first it grows into a partial fist, and then it grows into an arm. And, you know, you can see how this is going. And finally, what was once just a finger emerges as a full-on chirping little hell spawn of an alienish lizard-type looking thing. And Clark, who's very lonely, joyously names this thing Bob. Clark is thrilled at the prospect of having a new friend. But then the murders start, and our friend the police start asking questions. Yeah, I hate when that happens. The premise of The Finger feels like familiar territory, like much in this series so far. Qualls sells the lovable scumbag well enough, and Clark's endearing, sardonic asshattery is clearly laid out from the get-go. And even as things spiral progressively out of control, we can't help but like the guy. And you see where he's coming from. It's a necessity condition for a bucket of blood style spooky story about schmucks who wind up in way over their heads by virtue of just being too stupid for their own good. By the way, again, I referenced A Bucket of Blood, one of my favorite black and white 60s horror flicks. You should check that one out too. And really, it's a level of character investment that we haven't seen up to this point this season. This guy sells the character, and that's what kept me watching it, and I appreciate that. DJ Qualls was the best thing about this particular part of the episode. The segments of episode 2 are certainly a step up, with The Finger probably emerging as the series' best so far. But admittedly, the bar is so low that it's almost a speed bump. I won't spoil anything else, but suffice it to say that we're miles away from anything in the realm of endgame rug pulls that made the original Creepshow movie such a blast. The final punches here feel more like a light breeze, and on the whole, even when the episode's inciting gambit is fine to good, we're always in on the joke, and you can often see the punchline coming. I'm still waiting for this iteration of Creepshow to capture that cackling, easy, dark comic humor, you know what I mean? But much like the reimagined Creep puppet itself that I talked about last episode that I hated, it all still feels way too stiff, a little fake. So I'm going to keep hanging with it, I am. But for now, I am regretting a little bit of not going with my original plan of covering Billions Season 5. So hang in there with me, folks. We're going to see if they're going to pull us out of it yet. And that's it for this episode of the GSMC Television Podcast. We're part of the mighty GSMC Podcast Network. If you like the show, please subscribe and rate us wherever you listen to us. Please do that. If you can rate us on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, that would be superb. That would be excellent. Please also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or follow us on Twitter like my man Dark Bulb does. Also, you can follow me on Twitter. That's Fletch DC. I told you all about that earlier. Listen, I would like to thank you for choosing to spend some of your day with me. Jack certainly enjoys your company, don't you, Jack? Our next episode drops on Tuesday. I will be using new software to record it, so please wish me luck, because right now it's not looking good. This time it's good. I'm not going to give the software a plug. It's really good. I use good software as it is. All right. I use Adobe. I'll give them a plug. I use Audition. I'm very satisfied with Audition. I have a business partner who wants me to go to this other software. I'm going to see what I can do. Until then, wash your hands, stay safe. I know some restrictions are beginning to relax in some states. As much as I would love to go dancing naked in the mud together with you guys and listen to some Funkadelic, please take it slow. Be safe. My name is Howard Fletcher. I love you guys. Thanks for being you. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Television Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.